valedictory session, which will be addressed by Naushad Oomer, Director Operations for Virgin Hyperloop. Your moderator for this session is Dr. Vasudevan, and it's my privilege to give you a brief introduction about Dr. Vasudevan. He's partner at and global lead for Aviation Group at KPMG India. He's also the global sector lead for the airports business and advises governments, airport owners, operators, aviation stakeholders on policy, strategy, finance, operations, and transactions related solutions. He has worked extensively with nearly every country in Southeast Asia, advising aviation and transport sector clients on airport development strategies. Dr. Vasudevan is an economist by training and holds a PhD in management from the Indian Institute of Science. He was also a doctoral research scholar in the National University of Singapore before choosing a career in the consulting industry. He's currently based out of Bangalore and continues to be actively involved in building KPMG's global airport advisory portfolio with a focus on PPP transactions, regulatory advice, economic impact assessments, operations, and technology-enabled solutions. It promises to be a really exciting event. And as we promised before, we will end this event on this high note. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Revati. Thanks for that very generous introduction. It's my pleasure to be here and moderate this session with Mr. Naushad Oomer. And before I start, of course, I just want to clarify that while I lead the airports business in KPMG, and I've been doing that for a few years now, I've also had the opportunity to work with a lot of other transport sector clients. And surprise, surprise, I've also done some work with VHO. And Naushad has been my client not so far back. And I've had the pleasure of interacting with them on one of their pioneering initiatives in India for the Pune Mumbai Hyperloop project. Not so far back, pre-COVID, of course. And of course, we will be seeing a lot more action in that space. And thanks again, Revati and Nirmal as well. Naushad, pleasure to have the opportunity to interact with you once more, albeit with, I think, almost a one-year gap where things had virtually come to a standstill. And I do think it's an apt session to close today's events as part of the TICON agenda. And I hope there are enough people who are locked in, because it is going to be a very interesting discussion with Naushad on a topic which I think is extremely significant, considering where we are as citizenry of the world, and also what we should expect to see as the future of mobility in India. Frankly, from my perspective, a lot has changed in the last 1 year, and a lot will change in the next couple of years. I just wanted to set the context before inviting Naushad to present to us on what he thinks are the key themes we should look forward to, and what their specific initiatives are going to be in this part of the world. I think this is without doubt something that we all of us appreciate. Some people who observed and followed the sector for a while. Two things, in my view, two themes that have become extremely dominant and sharply accentuated by the COVID pandemic in a sense, are technology and sustainability, or what we call as ESG, environmental social goals globally. And I think in that context, the discussion that we're having today on Hyperloop couldn't have been more relevant. It touches both themes or elements of business very sharply. And I think that is where I think it is important to hear from Naushad and what we can expect to see from technologies like Hyperloop in the future. In fact, I was just thinking the other day, in fact, when I was speaking to Naushad, I was telling him that Hyperloop 10 years back as a technology was probably a chapter in a science fiction book, just as much as space travel was. But in today's world, I think everybody expects this to be a reality not so far in the future. And as much as space travel, because we've seen so much happen in the world. And that's where I think it's going to be interesting to see what we can really achieve as benefits or outcomes through the Hyperloop technology. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that when we talk of Hyperloop, it's not so much about passenger movements or passenger travel, which is typically the context in which we understand the technology or what it can deliver. It is also equally about how technology like this can facilitate cargo movements, both urban transit as well as intercity movements, which I think will be a game changer in the logistics environment in India. And of course, Naushad will talk more about it very shortly. And lastly, I think I should mention that I've had the pleasure, as I said, of working with Naushad and his team, a very young and sharp set of professionals, many of them coming from Ivy School backgrounds, and completely clued in on the opportunity in terms of what it can deliver to different parts of the world. As I said, I've been involved in one of those projects, but they've been very busy talking to various governments across India and across the region, including the Middle East and other parts of the world. And for me, I think it's something that as a group we all should look forward to in terms of serious investments coming into the space, and also maybe look at how many of us as stakeholders or potential stakeholders in this business in the future can have a relationship with Hyperloop in some form or the other, which, as I said earlier, could be a significant game changer on not just mobility, but also in terms of driving future growth in India. So let me, with that, quickly introduce Naushad. Just give me a few seconds to help me pop up his bio. So Naushad Oomer is actually the Director of Operations at Virgin Hyperloop, VHO as we all popularly know it. He's an experienced project director, pursuing many businesses, as I said, globally. He's also the business development and strategic expert, partnering with various clients on opportunities that have wide-ranging impacts. He leads multinational and multidisciplinary teams to deliver highly specialized and unprecedented solutions to government and private sector clients. I referred to a couple in my opening remarks. He also has strategic insight into large-scale infrastructure development projects with a focus on the application of innovative technologies, not just Hyperloop, just keep that in mind, financing and delivery methods, and has led the development and transaction solutions of the largest privately led transport infrastructure projects involving innovative technologies. Previously, Naushad worked for public sector clients in the United Kingdom and the United States, providing, again, strategic advice on P3 or public-private partnerships, as we call them here in this part of the world, procurement methods, on asset management solutions for transport infrastructure, and also on technical advisory services. I do know that he has had a rich history of working for technical consultants, including CH2ML in the past, to various public sector clients working on various businesses such as costing model, business solutions, my apologies, such as costing models, financial modeling, risk management, program management, and tender assessment for large-scale road and transit projects in the feasibility stage. So with that background, Naushad, pleasure again to invite you to present to this distinguished audience that we have today in this session. And following your presentation, we will of course have a lot more questions to ask you from me and the rest of the participants. Over to you, Naushad.
Thank you very much, Vasu. That was a really generous introduction. And it's great to see you. It's been, like you said, almost a year. We were living in a very different world the last time we met in person in Mumbai. And it's unfortunate that we have to see each other in this way, but hopefully things will improve and we'll get to see each other again, in person as things progress in India. Really glad to have the opportunity to address TICON this year. It's a great opportunity, especially to have the closed session here. And I have a presentation for you. I hope you can see my screen. Let me just get on full screen mode here. Can you see that okay, Vasu? Okay, perfect. So thank you, everyone. My name is Naushad Oomer. I'm Director of Operations for Virgin Hyperloop in India. I'm very excited to be here. And I really would like to, close this ceremony with this presentation, and I hope I can capture your imagination on what we're doing, the interesting things that we're doing globally and in India at Virgin Hyperloop.
Naushad, can you present it? It's not in the presentation.
Okay, apologies. Is this working?
No, we're still seeing your slide and your notes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. I think this was okay, the last attempt, Naushad. Revati, is it fine? It looks fine at my end.
Oh, okay. So it could be a streaming. Let me just check. Give me.
Or maybe if you have the presentation, you can pop it up and run it, and Naushad can speak over it.
Okay, is this better? Or are you still seeing the note screen?
Yeah, we're still seeing the notes, Naushad.
Still seeing the note.
Okay, how about I continue in this way? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
In the interest of time. Okay, so I want to take you back first to when we first came to India, which was back in 2016, 2017. And I think this is a really interesting competition that we ran. And I think as entrepreneurs, you may appreciate how we went about this. So what we did as a young company based in LA, developing a future mode of transport, is really to understand what and where in the world Hyperloop can really make the most impact. Is we asked the world, where do you think we should come? Where do you think Hyperloop would make the most impact to economies, to cities, countries, etc.? So we put out a competition called the Global Challenge. And at the time we were known as Hyperloop One. And it was a global competition. We put it out there for anyone to enter. And we asked the world, do you want us in your communities, in your cities and countries, and let us know where we should come. And the most interesting thing that happened is that we got the most applications from India by far than anywhere else in the world. It was on the order of hundreds, like exponentially higher than anywhere else in the world. And it became clear that this is the market and this is the place where we could have the most positive impact. And so very quickly after that, we jumped on planes from LA and came to India immediately, and we held this event called our Vision for India event. And we had Mr. Amitabh Kant as well as Mr. Suresh Prabhu, who was the railway minister at the time, to address the audience and to give you a flavor of the kind of people and the teams that were putting in these applications. It was entrepreneurs, it was individuals, it was students, it was consultants, governments, it was people, just general public that were putting in these applications saying that, hey, you need to build a Hyperloop between Chennai and Bangalore. You need to build a Hyperloop between Mumbai and Pune, or Delhi and Amritsar. And what we did is we filtered through those applications and we picked out the top few and we invited them to this event. And it was amazing to see the amount of interest that we had in India, and as well as the support from the leadership at that time to actually invite us and to have this conversation about bringing Hyperloop to India. And it was clear from that moment that there's a definite need for Hyperloop in India, but also there's talent, there's the excitement, and there's the will to actually look into the future and to leapfrog over existing transport technologies and actually bring this technology to India. And I don't think it's a very surprising thing, right? If you look at India's track record, it's known to have achieved major milestones in technology, to leapfrog, over technologies and basically lead the IT revolution. And in our view, the way we look at this is that, in the 1990s and early 2000s, you had the information technology revolution. And I think the next big thing globally is the transportation revolution. And without changing the way we move, because we'll always need to move, right? Even though, as you've seen in 2020, things have slowed down, but you've also seen the impacts of what happens when people are not able to move and see each other. It really is detrimental to the economies, to the world in general. And the responsible way to make sure that we move in a way that basically doesn't have a negative impact on our climate is to actually look at future technologies, future innovations that can offer transportation solutions that are clean and sustainable. And I want to talk about that a little more as we go on. So in terms of what we're trying to solve here, transportation demand in India has increased nearly 8 times since the 1980s. And you all know it, you've seen it in the trains, in the planes, obviously not now with COVID, but as you've seen before we went into this pandemic, the infrastructure was at capacity, and it still is at capacity. I was in Mumbai last week. Traffic is up to regular levels, and the train systems are going to open up soon. And things are not going to change, and it's going to keep growing. People are moving into cities at unprecedented rates. And unless we find a way that to really tackle this issue and to support the growth that India is seeing, we're in for major trouble in the future, not just in India, but around the world. And what we're aiming to do here is really, change the way, not in an incremental fashion, not in a ride-sharing way, not with electric vehicles, but really, take a giant leap into the future, because that's what we need. We don't need more cars on the road, whether they're ride shares or not. We need a clean, high-speed, on-demand mass transportation solution, which is the only way for us to maintain our goals in terms of climate change and sustainability. So at this point, I'd like to ask the Tycon team if they can play the first video that I'd shared. If possible, let me know if that can be played at this point. Is that doable, or should I keep going? Okay, I'll keep going. Let me know if you're able to spool that up, and then I can show the video. But moving on, in terms of what we're trying to do here in India. So like I mentioned, we've been here for 3 years. We've demonstrated in our facilities in the US, both that Hyperloop is real, it's built at full scale.
Naushad, we put on the video now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
It all began when Sushant and I were in high school, back when we were growing up in Mumbai. So he was one of the first persons that, I started sharing everything with.
I was pretty committed from day one. I just made up my mind very early, and here we are.
After we got married, we moved to Pune, some 150 kilometers southeast of Mumbai. I got a job here I really love. I don't think we could afford this much space in Mumbai than in Pune. While we were so happy about it,
Let's
Sushant
move on.
asked us to go back to Mumbai.
Suddenly, I got
Sure.
this
So
fantastic.
as you saw from the video, this is an example that shows you a real life situation in India where there's a couple that's living apart from each other, that's not able to spend quality time together, and really have to go out of their way, spend 5 hours on different modes of transport to get to their destinations. And that's really the problem we're trying to solve. It's not about building something that's super fast or something that's out of a science fiction book, as Vasu was saying. It's about something that can really impact and change people's lives and give people their time back and give people the quality of life that they deserve, both from a time perspective as well as a clean air and a safe and healthy living environment perspective. So I just want to back up a little bit here and tell you a little bit about what Hyperloop is. So imagine you have a pod, which is the vehicle, as you see inside the infrastructure there. So that's a pod which holds about up to 28 passengers. It's fully pressurized, similar to an airplane fuselage. It's traveling in a tube, which is a low pressure environment. So we pull the air out of the tube to create a near vacuum environment. And then we levitate the pod on a maglev track. So essentially there's no contact at all with the pod. It's not traveling on a steel wheel on rail situation. And there's also no aero drag because it's traveling in this tube which has very little air in it. So what that allows you to do is it allows you to go very, very fast, but also with very little energy consumption. And there's zero emissions on site. It's fully electric. And to add to that, it's 100% autonomous, which makes it safer, makes it more efficient. And because these pods are only 28% pods at a time, you're actually giving a lot of flexibility. You're allowing people to show up and go, get in a pod, and the pod departs immediately, rather than having to wait at a station for a large train to get built up. And you may wonder, is this something that can be feasible from a cost perspective? Can it be affordable? And the answer is yes. And we've done the studies. We've looked at, we've built the technology. We know what it costs. We've looked at operations and maintenance costs, and we've demonstrated that this can be scaled, can be a mass transport solution, can carry hundreds of people in an hour, and can basically, do this all autonomously and in a safe manner. So when you think about Hyperloop, you think about speed first. Yes, it is very fast. It can go up to 1,000 kilometers an hour, which is much faster than high-speed rail and way faster than traditional rail. It's similar to airplane speeds, but you're basically bringing that down onto the ground. What that does is it allows you to go from city center to city center at airline speeds on the ground without traveling, thousands of feet up in the air. And also, you don't have to have massive infrastructure for airports in cities. Airports require runways and terminals and a lot of infrastructure to go along with them. And airlines travel will always exist. It makes a lot of sense when you're looking at longer distances. But when you look at short haul flights, Hyperloop can definitely be a solution for that kind of distance. In terms of operations, so not only are we fast, we're basically saving people time by being on demand and by being direct to destination. So what that means is that you're showing up to a station and you're leaving immediately. You're not waiting for a pod. Direct to destination means that you're not stopping at intermediate stations along a route. You're going directly to your point, your destination point. The way that's achieved is by having several pods that travel along in a convoy, and each pod can peel off the main convoy, the main tube, and ramp into a station, which allows the convoy to continue going to its destination. Safety and comfort. So this by no means is going to feel like a roller coaster. I'll show you a video a little later here on the first ever Hyperloop passenger test that we ran in Nevada last month. And you'll see that, our co-founder and Sarah Lucian, who's the director of passenger experience, are sitting there smiling and they're totally comfortable as they go through the system. This will have a similar acceleration as rail. So it's not going to feel, you're not going to feel forces any different from what you would feel on a train or a metro. And at the same time, the central command and control center will ensure safe and reliable passage throughout the network. Sustainable. So this is the most important thing that I want to talk about. And I touched on it earlier. It's not something that's a nice to have. It's something that's a requirement. And it's becoming more and more important as we move forward into the future in terms of the impact that transportation has on the environment today. And that's something that we really need to change. So in the India context, what does that mean? We looked at what the savings could be from from a pollution perspective for Mumbai, Pune, for the project that we are proposing to build there. And it can actually eliminate 150,000 tons of CO2 and emissions per year. That's a huge number if you look at it in that way. And it can power thousands and thousands of homes if you look at it in that way. It also moving cars and buses off the road onto Hyperloop can really improve the quality of lives of people that live along that corridor. The other thing that we don't think about a lot is noise. And as you go into city centers with major infrastructure, there is an impact of noise, which is one reason why airports exist away from cities, right? And which is also why high-speed rail and high-speed maglev solutions can't come into city centers where people live very efficiently because of the noise that goes along with it. with Hyperloop, as you're in a tube, you're enclosed or you're underground, that really mitigates the impact of noise as you look at it from that perspective. So I want to talk about a project that we've developed over the last 2 years in Maharashtra. This is the Mumbai Pune project, which currently, as you know, takes about almost 4 hours, I would say, to do that trip from the center of Mumbai to the center of Pune. It says 2.5 hours here, but that's, I think, the most optimistic view. As you know, getting out of Mumbai itself would take you up to an hour, hour and a half in some cases. So this would drop the travel times down to 25 minutes. And the way we're doing that is not by traveling 1,000 kilometers an hour. If you do the math, it's basically by being as cognizant of populations and the alignment and the corridors available, and being as least disruptive as possible to the quality of lives and then the people living across on this alignment, because we're navigating the existing transport corridors between the two cities. So what this project will enable is 150 million passenger journeys annually. The capacity of the system, like I was saying, is mass transit. It's not for a few people, it's for as many people that need to travel can travel on it. The impact of this project through time savings, through socioeconomic benefits, really would send this whole region, create this mega region out of Mumbai and Pune. They would become like metro stops away from each other. And that'll spur significant economic activity, up to $36 billion in socioeconomic benefits over the life of the project. We also looked at what benefits could be gained out of India being a first mover in this technology. And I think that's one of the most interesting points here, is by being one of the first countries to implement Hyperloop on a commercial scale, there's a huge opportunity for manufacturing and for creation of jobs from manufacturing and export of Hyperloop components globally. The market for Hyperloop is forecasted to be significant over the coming decades, and India could be a first mover in that technology. One last thing I want to flag about this project is the way we're developing this and structuring this contract with the government there, and Vasu has been part of the team working on this, is it's a private infrastructure investment. So the cost and the construction of this project will be 100% private. The government will support by providing land, but the investment is completely private, and it'll be developed in 2 phases. So phase 1 will be a demonstrator, be about 12 kilometers, where we would achieve safety certification for the first time in India. And only once we achieve that, we'll move to phase 2, which is the larger project, which will actually carry passengers and cargo on it. So moving to another very interesting project that we're working on in India is the project that we have with the Bangalore International Airports Limited. We signed an MOU with them last month, in September this year, and we've been working on a study with them to look at both airport to city connectivity. As we all know, Bangalore struggles with congestion, and while there's a lot of efforts to alleviate that issue, there's still a need for airport connectivity, high-speed airport connectivity. There's a major demand for that, and Hyperloop offers a really interesting solution for airport connectivity, where you could actually move a lot of the airport elements into the city. So you could check in, you could go through security, maybe even immigration someday in the city, get into a pod and go directly to the airside of a terminal or even a remote runway. And the reason you can do that with Hyperloop is because it's a completely closed system. You're basically traveling in a tube in a vacuum. So it's 100% secure. Once you've passed through security, you can basically go into a pod that's completely sealed off and go straight into the airside. The other interesting use case is connecting 2 airports together. Maybe you have one airport that's at capacity, the other airport that's way below capacity. And instead of building another airport in the region, by building a high-speed connector between these 2 airports, all of a sudden these airports start acting as one. And essentially you're talking about 2 terminals rather than 2 airports, and you can shuttle passengers quickly between these 2 terminals to achieve the same outcome. So at this point, I'd like the Tycon team to play the second video that I had shared.
Can you stop sharing the video presentation, please?
We're driven to explore, to connect, to innovate, to muster the courage to take a giant leap forward. The time has come to ask ourselves again, what is the future we want to build?
All right, team, please confirm you're ready.
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 Capcom, you are a go for launch countdown.
Pegasus, this is Capcom. Prepare for launch in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch.
Today, the first people traveled safely on a Hyperloop. Tomorrow, Virgin Hyperloop will change the way the world moves with an on-demand, sustainable mass transportation system that connects cities in minutes. The future of Hyperloop travel is real, and the moment is now.
Thank you very much for playing that. So what you saw there was the first ever humans traveling on a Hyperloop system anywhere in the world. And that happened in November 8th. So not too long ago in our facilities in Nevada. And what that means is, I mean, up till now, and we've got this question a lot, particularly in India, is, has anyone traveled on the system? Is it real? Is it safe? And I think what we did there, what we demonstrated there is that it is real, it is safe. While this is a first step towards actually building a commercial system, it's a huge step. And you know, what we achieved there was 48 meters a second, which is obviously not as fast as we plan to go. We plan to hit at least 250 meters a second, but that's what we could achieve with the length of track that we have. We have a 0.5 kilometer of track. And as you can imagine, you know, with that short distance, you can only safely accelerate and decelerate to a certain speed. One of the key things that we showed there is that passengers can travel in the pod in a vacuum environment and be safe, right? The tube had a pressure of 100 pascals, which is near vacuum. And the other thing which, you know, is often overlooked is that we worked through this process with an independent safety assessor. So we checked all the boxes required to be able to run this demonstration, which goes to show that the people that we have, the team that we have there, the engineers and the safety experts are basically skilled and qualified to run a program of this nature, which we'll do, you know, over and over again as we get to commercial operations. So in terms of the progress around the world, I want to talk about some of the progress on regulations. So here in Europe, we've made a lot of progress with DG Move as well as Shift to Rail. And as you can imagine, for Hyperloop to be successful and safe and be commercially deployed, you need to have standards, you need to have a regulatory body in different countries around the world to be able to certify and sign off on the system being safe. And I'm pleased to say that there's been a lot of progress in Europe as well as the US and now in India as well on getting us to this to that place. Europe is very advanced in terms of setting standards, and they've recently included Hyperloop in the sustainability and smart mobility strategy, which is a huge step. A lot of the other Hyperloop companies are also part of the conversation, which always helps. And I think the positive thing for India is that with the bilateral agreements between Europe and India, a lot of those codes and standards could be transferred to India as well. In terms of the US, again, there's a lot of progress in terms of identifying the FRA as the framework under which Hyperloop will fall in the US. The Net Council, which was designated under the US DOT, was basically responsible for making that decision. And this allows us to basically be treated as a existing mode of transport, makes us eligible for grants and federal funding as well. The other major development in the US was the Hyperloop Certification Center, which essentially is the first of its kind Hyperloop Certification Center, which will be built in West Virginia. What this is going to prove is that what we did in Nevada and the video that I just showed you was the first prototype. It was the generation 1 of the technology that we demonstrated. This will basically demonstrate the commercial technology, faster speeds, turns, and basically more people on the system, and really allowing the safety certification experts to come there and certify different elements of the system. And this is a huge step to actually get to a commercial system in the future. In India, very recently, Niti Aayog has formed a panel to study Hyperloop, Virgin Hyperloop technology in India, to look at the commercial viability, the feasibility, and the technical viability for India. There's a panel that's been put together, which includes the Ministry of Railways, MORTH, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, IITs, as well as representatives from Maharashtra, to look at the technology from a holistic perspective and see how it can be deployed in India. One of the key interests from this committee is also how can we bring the innovation, the manufacturing, and the knowledge to India, which can be exported around the world, which I think is really the right way for India to be looking at this. And we're very excited to have this panel online. So with that, that was the last slide I had, but I'd like to thank everyone for this opportunity. And as you can see, I'm very excited, and we're very excited to be in India. And we think the future is bright, especially looking forward to 2021 and resuming our works there and moving towards commercial operations. And Vasu, over to you.
Thanks, Naushad. That was wonderful to see again. I have been, of course, privy to some of those slides and the information that you shared with the wider team here. But I must say that you've come a long way, and it's good to see the setting up of the Global Certification Center, which you referred to. And I think, to me, I think that's a kind of a landmark event insofar as addressing the whole regulatory question is globally. I know that this has been a big point of concern in India. So it's good to see that that's in place, and hopefully it will get many of our decision makers a lot more inclined to see how they can now work together with you guys to, in a sense, ground that framework to make sure that at least you don't have the safety and regulatory hassles becoming, showstoppers for this fantastic technology. So Nirmal, do we have questions coming in? I can see a few popping up on my chat box. Yeah. So while we wait for more questions to come in, Naushad, let me ask you the first one. You did refer to the new center in West Virginia. Now, is that active already? I mean, are you seeing any traction in terms of, government conversations with you or other regulators wanting to understand more about how they can become part of this whole process? And what does that mean for India, being one of the largest markets you're looking at?
Absolutely. So it's definitely been a huge step towards getting governments around the world comfortable with this technology. The US has taken a leadership position in terms of announcing that they want to build the first certification center in the US. West Virginia has had a major role to play in that. I think what that does and what that means for India in particular is that the first, commercial system will be built in the US. It'll be tested and certified with US regulators. And so the entire process, will play out there before it can be built in India. So that's something that definitely gives a lot of confidence to government stakeholders that we talk to in India and in other parts of the world as well. I mean, there's definitely, the US has a track record in terms of, certifying and looking at technologies in that perspective. And so it gives a lot of comfort. And also there is opportunity for India and others to get involved in that process with the US and become part of that conversation. And that's what we're trying to get going with the Niti Aayog panel as well.
Okay. And that's my second question as well, as we wait for more questions to come in. You did refer to the effort by Niti Aayog, our flagship policy and strategy think tank in India. And I think it'll be important to understand your message or your views on what the brief of this panel or committee should be. They have, of course, announced their intent to assess the feasibility, so to speak. But then, if you were to basically highlight two or three key considerations to help them come up with some pragmatic construct of the financing operations and the governance framework or the regulatory framework, which is very important for any new technology for projects in India to make it both operationally scalable and commercially sustainable. What would those three things be from your perspective?
Sure. So I think the first thing is, we're very excited by this step taken by Niti Aayog, and it's a major step in the right direction. And the panel that they've got together are really the right people to be able to look at this technology, across the board in India. So it's an excellent move and really gives us a platform to be able to talk about Hyperloop, the impacts and the technology and the commercial viability. So I think one thing that I would hope for as we look at this in India is not about if this technology is feasible or viable for India.
Yep.
It's more about how do we make it feasible and viable in India and when it's going to happen, right? And I think, look, it is something that we've demonstrated is feasible. We know that India definitely has a need for this technology. I think the way to look at it is that how do we help make it happen? And I think there's a few things to look at when you talk about it that way. One is obviously having a regulatory framework and looking at the safety standards for India, having a ministry or multiple ministries basically take ownership of Hyperloop and develop the framework for Hyperloop in India from a safety certification perspective, which is very important. And you've seen US has done that now, and Europe is going to follow suit. And then the second one I would say is looking at a regulatory framework from a commercial perspective. So how will Hyperloop be regulated in terms of fares and in terms of competing modes, et cetera, tax structures. And I think that's another important aspect when you look at especially private finance coming in to build these massive infrastructure projects. You definitely need that support and from the government on that. And the third is really the ecosystem, right? And I think, like I was saying earlier, India has this major opportunity to basically manufacture and build the components in India, export them around the world, and also use them locally manufacture for India itself. And I think this panel can definitely help, with a framework for that as well.
Excellent. Now, I think the last point is equally critical for Indian investors or the Indian government, so to speak, which does create a huge set of downstream opportunities if you can produce a lot of these pods in India. And that's a distinct possibility. It's something that we've read about, something that I understand WHO is very serious about, and also fits in nicely with the government's own self-reliance or Atmanirbhar initiative, which gets talked about a lot today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Naushad. I know it's a Saturday evening, and we probably are seeing people also getting busy with their families. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and the wonderful presentation. We are running short of time. I think there are a few questions which are popping up, but I think we may not be able to take them now. But I'm sure that the organizers will find a way to connect these people with you to get their questions answered over the next few days. Thanks again to Tycon for inviting me to moderate this session with Naushad. It's been a while since we met, but it was interesting to catch up and understand where they are in terms of the whole business development process globally, particularly for India, where there's a lot of excitement and expectation about how fast this technology can come. And I think the Bangalore example that you mentioned also shows the keenness with which many state governments are moving on this whole new mobility solution. Over to you, Revati and Nirmal. I think we can close the session now and possibly focus on the valedictory session next.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Vasu, and thanks, Tycon team. It was really great.
Yes. Thank you, Naushad. Thank you, Doctor, for starting and ending on time. Just wanted to make a quick note. In little over 48 hours, we moved from inaugural session where We have the Honorable Minister for Road Transport and Highways, and we end the session with Hyperloop. It's either an incredible coincidence or incredible planning. We'll take credit. We'll say it's incredible planning. But thank you so much. And we will now wrap up with our typical housekeeping session for TiCon. Thanks again. And I just have a very, very short note. Of course, no event is complete without words of gratitude, respect, and affection to all those who made it possible. As my final duty as MC, it's my pleasure to welcome Nirmal Panikkar, Executive Director, TiE Kerala, to convey closing remarks. And again, for one last time, over to you, Nirmal.
Hey, participants, we thus come to the close of another engaging series of talks and sessions at TiCon Kerala 2020. This, the 9th edition of TiCon, was a definite first in various aspects. For one, it was the first virtual session of this magnitude that has been organized by TiE Kerala. And being virtual has got its own advantages and disadvantages. Probably the main advantage that we had is the fact that we were able to get great set of speakers from across the globe joining us for this 2.5-day conference. The masterclasses, the sectoral tracks had great attendance, and the feedback that we got from the participants were very encouraging. The keynotes and the fireside chats featured some of the stellar speakers from across the globe talking about contextual topics. Probably the only disadvantage that we had during the program would be the warmth and the networking opportunities that were lacking in a physical meeting. But with these limitations of a virtual platform, we had tried our best to enable networking opportunities for participants and also give them a great learning experience overall. I hope you found the whole event engaging and with a lot of takeaways. I take this opportunity to thank you all participants for joining in large numbers and for the support and encourage that's been extended to the TiE Kerala team as always. To sum up on the event and to briefly deliver the vote of thanks, I request Mr. Jacob Joy, the TiCon Kerala 2020 Program Chair, to take it forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nirmal. It's been 2.5 days. We've had some great sessions. I hope all of you are taking something back from these sessions. Over the last 2.5 days, we've actually had the opportunity to listen to speakers from across the globe, taking us through their journeys, their challenges, and in some cases, even their failures. And all of this has been to motivate us, the audience, to dive into our businesses, and also to leave us with a positive framework to build successful businesses. We've had masterclasses engaging us on various facets of the startup ecosystem, and also on the established for the established entrepreneurs amongst us. The main aim of these masterclasses was to provide us a framework to enable us to think more with clarity and with a longer-term vision. I sincerely hope that you, as the audience, enjoyed the sessions, have noted key takeaways. We for sure, organizing the event, had a great time putting this together. An event of this scale actually requires many variables to work cohesively, particularly when it's online, when you're not meeting each other, a lot of it done on Zoom. It's not just the 3 days that we've been doing the event, but even the lead up to the event, the planning or the ideation to the implementation. As the saying goes, it takes 2 hands to actually clap and make some noise. But in the case of organizing an event, it takes many more hands to actually get together to do this. With the TiE Global Summit having been just a week ago, we did have run into a lot of walls when we were looking for speakers, because many of them were already speaking at the TGS. But thanks to many of our members and the contacts that they used, we were able to put together a session which actually made TiCon Kerala a global event, because we had speakers speaking from every coast of the US and other places of the world. It's only proper, I feel, to start by thanking Mr. Ajit Mupin, TiE President, and Mr. Hari Nair, the Program Director and Vice President, for giving me this opportunity actually to try and put together a program along with our team. I hope all of you have taken away notes and will be useful. I must kind of nudge you and tell you that the recordings are available for a week from now. So I would encourage you to come back to the sessions and probably catch up on maybe some of the sessions that you missed out on. We had speakers from across the globe. I'd love to thank them. And many of them were very accommodative to our last minute requests to actually change timings, etc. So thank you so much. The Honorable Chief Minister, the Honorable Union Minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari ji, Dr. Vishwas Mehta IAS, Chief Secretary, charter members from other Thai chapters, other speakers from across the globe who conducted the sessions, the faculty for the master classes who also shared their experiences with us. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. For the moderation, we had mainly our charter members of Thai Kerala moderate events. Thank you so much for taking your time. It was fantastic to see you bring out the best in each of the sessions. We also had moderators who were external. Thank you so much for taking your time and being with us and helping us understand the sessions a little better. Every event is held together by two people most of the time, and they are the MCs. They provide the framework for the event to actually start happening, and they give us the guidance throughout the 2 days. My sincere thanks to Revathi and Tangam for being that framework, guiding us through the sessions and guiding us through the days. With this, I would invite Hari to just come forward and do the remaining part of the thank you.
Thanks, Jacob, for the chocolates which kept us, gave us fuel right through the event over the last 2.5 days. Jacob and Naveen actually, as Naveen was a co-coordinator for the programs, both of them did such a wonderful job that one of the moderators actually was calling me and apologizing because his session went over by 1 minute. So that is the sort of way in which we were able to hold this event. Thanks, Jacob and Naveen, for putting together such a great program. The other conveners, we have the registrations were handled ably by Mani and Damodar. We have crossed 1,000 registrations this time. We had the sponsors. The sponsorship was looked after by our past chairman, Rajesh. And the digital part of it was handled by Mukund and Kamath. Vishnu, my son, also helped out. Thanks. And MSA Kumar was there with a lot of ideas and always telling us to dumb it down further, so that we would do something which we can actually handle. Thanks, MSA. We had Sandit, who handled the marketing, the digital marketing, which actually got us all these registrations. We had Vivek and Vivek, Vivek Govind and Vivek Venugopal, and who handled the Thai awards in such a grand manner. The jury members, of course, thanks to all of you who put this together. And Ajit, the driving force behind this, was always pushing us towards, I would say, perfection. Ajit, let me just quote to you something which a Kashmiri carpet maker once told me: only Allah is perfect. All of us have mistakes, and I'm sure that we have made some mistakes, but finally at the end of it, I think we put together something which works for all of us. The secretariat led by Nirmal and with Anup, Boni, Akhil, Rahul, Divya, and Riyad, they really worked out of their skins to put this event together. I had to sit up till to make you sit up till 12 o'clock one night. But you really got together, got everything done, and used all the resources which were available to you to put this together. This is something which we've not done before, and we also couldn't find enough of of similar events, that we could actually take guidance from. So I think in many ways, the event that we held was a little unique compared to even other similar events which have been held by other Thai chapters. We had one single track, but that track, gave the prominence to every speaker in the event, and equal prominence to everybody. And what it also meant was that, when people are attending from their homes and from their offices, they could plan what they want to attend, and they could, and I think that is actually told finally on the amount of attendance that we've had for this event. We had, the platform was is from Hubilo, and Vidhi and Akash, both of you have given a lot of time for us, and thank you very much for spending so much of time to get this done for us. The result marketing was done by Jacob and Surya, and the creatives were done by Design Peeps, that is Vijay Raj of Design Peeps. The videos were done by Nisha Krishnan of Channel EM. So altogether, all of these people put together were the people behind this event, and all of us really thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Now, an event like this, of course, needs finance, and our sponsors who have been supporting Thai Kerala have continued to support us this year. And despite it being a difficult year, we especially thank all the sponsors who have actually come forward and helped us with this. IIFL was the presenting sponsor. We had gold sponsors in KSM, KPMG, Agape, Eastern, IBIS, and Geojet. And we had silver sponsorships from Elite and Pure Heart. And we had supporting sponsorships from MN Holdings, ESAF, and KIMS, and Tata Tele. And Manorama Group actually has come forward as a sponsor for Thai Awards, which we'll be handing over, which were announced during ThaiCon and would be handed over later in January. So we had we also managed to give a slight a small spotlight to TYE and the Capital Cafe, which are handled by Anisha and Roshan. So all of this, we went into this not knowing whether we would be able to, whether it's going to be a physical event or a hybrid event, or finally turned out to be a fully digital event. We tried to stretch it out thinking that, somebody would discover some sort of miracle cures and help us, but we managed to hold it in the last available weekend, actually, available week of December of 2020. So I would like to leave you here, wishing you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and a good season to follow. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in ThaiCon Kerala 2021, which will definitely be a physical event, and we will be able to meet all of you in person. Now we have the event is going to be available on the platform till 31st December, and we have some of the so you will be able to go and look up events which you may have missed, and you will also be able to make connects to the speakers through the networking lounges that we have. Thank you, all of you, from the bottom of my heart, and from the whole team here. Thanks, and goodbye.